Hey everyone, in this tutorial I'll show you how to use Grid Inventory plugin with your own character. We'll be using the third person character template as an example. First of all, ensure that the inventory plugin is enabled. Then make sure that Show Engine Content and Show Plugin Content are both checked. Also ensure that you've added the plugin stack to your project. You can check this in the project settings. For this example, I used the default character blueprint. I started by adding an inventory for the character's pockets. I also selected an inventory asset and added some default items. Next, I implemented the grid character interface. And added a scene component to act as the drop-in position. Then I implemented the interface function and provided it with the position of our newly created component. For the inventory initialization logic, I copied the player inventory widget. First, I reparented it to the default user widget. Then I added a construct node and inserted the widget initialization logic. Most of the initialization logic is already implemented. You just need to provide the correct data. To do this, I got the Onion player pawn, cast it to the third person example character, then got a reference to the pocket inventory and pasted it to the add inventory to pocket slots function. After that, I cleaned up the nodes, because we want our nodes to be clean, and thus completed the widget side initialization. We are ready to initialize our character. For the character initialization, I simply copied the begin play node from grid inventory character. I made a few changes. I initialized our packets inventory component, and I also had to change the class used for the player inventory widget. Before doing that, I decided to rename the copied inventory widget to make things more clear. Then I selected the renamed widget as the class and added it to the viewport. I also promoted the Windows layout widget to a new variable, so we can access it elsewhere, such as in the interface function. And that's all the basic setup you need to get started. Now it's time to add drop-in item support. To do this, I implemented the drop item function. I simply copied the code from the inventory character and made a few adjustments to the item drop point position, and now drop-in works. Grid inventory character has other logic, such as casting array for interaction and toggling the inventory widget. Let's copy that as well. I started with the array casting logic. I simply copied it, then added an F-key input node. In your project, you can use enhanced input instead. I pasted the copied logic and swapped the first person camera with the follow camera. I also increased the array cast distance. Next, I added a tab key input node for toggling the player inventory. For this, we first need to create a bool variable to track inventory visibility. Then I copied the toggle logic from the grid inventory character again. I remove the add main input context and remove main input context nodes, because we won't be using those nodes in our custom character. Since we are toggling the widget manually, we need a widget reference to store a reference to it. Let's add that. After promoting the widget to a variable, I use it for toggling. Also, we should remove the add to viewport node from the initialization code, since we are now toggling the widget instead of showing it immediately. And that's it. Now we can toggle the inventory widget and cast array for interaction. We are ready to connect interaction elements to our character, starting with the pickup interaction. It's a good practice to copy the plugin's content and make changes to the copied version, so you always have the original as a reference. However, for the sake of simplicity and demonstration, I will modify grid item drop actor directly. As you can see, there is a cast to the grid character. This should be changed to our character. But before we can do this, we need to create a try pickup item function. This function takes a grid item as input and returns a bool as output. In this new function, I added a call to try equip item function. Then I went back to the drop actor, updated the cast to use the third person character, and called our new function. Now we can use the drop actor for picking up our items. Let's add an interactable stash as a final example. The same principle applies here. We'll just update references to our character. I started by casting to the third person character, then promoted the result to a variable. After that, I replaced all grid character usages with the new variable. The grid inventory character has a toggle inventory widget function, so let's add the same function to our character as well. This function simply wraps our inventory tagline logic, so we just need to move that code into a new function. Once the function was added, I called it inside BP stash actor. After that, we should be able to interact with the stash actor. And as you can see, we can now view the stash and drag and equip items. You might also notice that if we equip a backpack, its inventory doesn't appear. That's because we haven't updated the equip/unequip callbacks for our character yet. Let's finish this tutorial by updating those callbacks. Those callbacks are located inside the player inventory equip panel. Inside the backpack unequip callback, I simply change the cast to the third person character and remove the set backpack item function. That function is just for demonstration purposes. If you need to store the backpack item in your character, you can create your own function and call it here. I then apply the same changes to the backpack equip callback. Now, when we equip or unequip the backpack, its inventory will be shown or hidden accordingly. You now have a fully functional inventory system integrated with your character. See you in the next video.